All right. So, what's been going on? Got up on Tuesday morning after a reset, which I really am not a fan of resetting on a Monday because that's a day I could be working. Anyway, I got up that morning, left Connecticut, drove to Long Island, did my pickup, drove to Cinnaminson, and then got all the way down to Carmel Church, Virginia. Uneventful. The next day, I got up early and I drove all the way down to the Georgia-Florida border in a town called St. Mary's. If you get off of I-95 on the east side, it's St. Mary's. On the west side, it's Kirkland, I think it is. Kingston, Kingford, something like that. Forgot now. But there's a truck stop on both sides. I took the St. Mary's side. It's long and narrow and it's all angled, so it's kind of, you go down and you make a turn, loop around. This is the way it looks. You loop around and then come back and you back into left or right. It's kind of a neat thing. But I got there early enough. I just parked in one of the closest parking spaces near the front, and they give you plenty of room, which is good. All right, so that day I got a pre-assignment. So the next morning I got up, I drove to Orlando, did my drops, did another pickup, went to another Orlando location, did a pickup. Then I tried to use the tablet to give me directions, but it just could not get directions to this other location on the northeast side of Orlando. So I had to kind of piece it together. But my for some reason, nothing I did was routing me on I-4, which was really annoying. So instead, it took me this really weird loop road that added about 15 miles or 14 miles, something like that. And that was annoying. And then I went to my last stop. Okay, this one was a bit of a annoyance to me. That last stop I stopped at for the day, they have a little bitty sign that if you see that says, "Oh, you need to back in here." A little sign, and I pull straight in because I don't know any better. And when I get down there, I'm like, "Oh, there's no place to turn around or anything." I did not. My mistake. I did not look at the Google map of the location before I got there. So I got down there, pulled in, realized that that I was in trouble because I needed to be back out of there, and this was a road that had traffic on both sides. So I was like, all right, well, that's fun. He loaded me up there even though I wasn't backed in, and I backed up to the street, and then I realized if I looked to my left and my right, I could and lean forward, I could actually see back on the road. And at this point, it was probably 10:30, not much traffic. So as soon as it was clear on both sides and I saw the light had just got through turning, I go ahead and back straight out into the intersection, or straight into the road, and start to do my it was actually a blind side back, so back into the right, because I needed to go back to the left. Anyway, a few cars started coming. They just stop and give me the room. It's nice of them. Somebody online said negotiating with traffic. But I like to think of it as people just don't want to hit a semi. They don't want to have a semi run into them or something like that. In CDL school, they always tell you, you're responsible if you hit this, if you do this, and basically if you drive, if you borrow a piece of someone else's lane in order to make your turn, even if you come to a stop, if they hit you, you're in their lane. It's like if I'm stopped and someone chooses to drive into me, I would like to think that some judge would end up saying, no, he was making his turn, you hit him. He had stopped when he saw that you were coming or something. Anyway, I don't know. Not a lawyer and not a judge. All right. So I finished my Orlando stops, and I was able to get out of Orlando all the way up to Hardeeville, South Carolina, which is the first exit in South Carolina up 95. I felt pretty good about that. All right, now the next day was a Saturday. I got up early, I started my drive, and I was making awesome time. And then approaching Baltimore, all these phantom stops for no reason. And by a phantom stop, I mean there's no traffic, there's no road construction. People just slow down for no reason. They just slow down and come to a stop, and after about 20 seconds, they start going again. And as I'm driving, I'm looking around, I'm like, there's nothing here, but it slows down for a good 10 minutes before that, and there's no reason. And then you go for about 2 minutes at interstate speeds by the time you get it to it, and then it slows you down again and stops you. And then you get going again, and there's no reason for it. And it does this maybe 4 or 5 times. And then I look down at my miles. Come to realize I had driven about 20 miles in about an hour and 15 minutes on a Saturday. And man, am I annoyed. I'm driving north, knowing full and well that I've already driven 4 days. And because it's a Saturday, I know I'm not going to make it to my last stop. Even if I didn't get stopped in traffic, I was probably going to shut down in, maybe just about 25, 30 miles farther north than I actually did. But instead, I was able to get up to Northeast Maryland. I wanted to get to Elkton, Maryland, which was only a few minutes past it. But I wasn't able to make it there because my hours of service were starting to run low. I didn't stop at one of the service places that have multiple restaurants and parking. I so wanted to stop and get myself a double baconzilla or baconator, whatever they call them at Wendy's, the bacon burger. But if I did that, I was worried that by the time I pulled back on, I would not have enough time to park. Even if it was just a quick stop, you pull right in there and you find a space. I was down by the time I passed that truck stop or that service area where I really didn't want to shut down for 2 days because I don't want to end up paying out of pocket for a shower. And if I could get to a Pilot, I could just use theirs. Because at this point I have shower power on my Flying J rewards. So anyway, I got to Northeast Maryland. By the time I backed in and shut down, I had 6.5 minutes left. I pulled into a space. I went ahead and backed in because I got there and I guess it was a little busy because of the lunch crowd. The problem I have with the Northeast Maryland location is that the parking spaces don't have much forward room. So if you park, if there's any trucks that are pulled out in front of you that aren't all the way back in their space, or even if they are, if they stick out too much in the front, you have to go, you pull out, and you have to pull out, make your turn, and then back out and do this a couple of times in order to pivot around somebody. And that was the way that it was. Since it was a Saturday and it was early afternoon, I went ahead and did a 34-hour reset, even though I had 25 hours left. If you don't know why, let me explain. Yes, I know that I could still save those hours and use them. But Pods doesn't work on Sundays. So if I got to shut down on Saturday at like 1 in the afternoon and my stop is about 2.5 hours away on Monday at 6 a.m., I have time to do a 34-hour reset. So those hours, you can sacrifice the time that you have left. If you are in a forced shutdown position where you can't do anything, you might as well reset. There's no reason you should just start it up the next day and drive a little bit closer and then not shut down, because then you're going to be out of hours earlier and then you're going to be shutting down midweek when you only have 6 days on the Pods account to do your deliveries. Ideally, you do your drop off on Monday, you pre-assigned, and you drive until Saturday. You shut down Saturday through Sunday, and then you deliver on Monday. That would be ideal. That's why I wasn't happy about it in the last video, because that got a bit annoying trying to get that all done. And then I had to shut down on Monday because I couldn't deliver on Sunday. I drove up there and then shut down. Had to. Yep. Okay, so what ended up happening after that? Monday, I did my delivery at Cinnamon Sin at 6 a.m. And then I was stopped. Not by a police officer or anything like that. I didn't have a pre-assignment. So there's a pilot just down the road, and so it's like 2 miles down the road, 3 miles down the road, something like that. So I stopped there, and they have a 6-hour parking spot where you get that for free. Otherwise, you have to pay $20. New Jersey, gotta love it. And I have a friend that lives in the area, so I was able to meet up with him and hang out some, which is not very long. But I got pre-assigned. I got a pre-assignment at 10 a.m. So I sat there off the clock, 4 hours killing time. My friend was only able to come by for just over half an hour, maybe about 40 minutes. But he brought me Dunkin' Donuts. He brought me 2 packs of walking bacon and a donut, so I was happy. I don't know if you can tell, but since the start of this channel, I've lost like over 40 pounds. You don't normally think about sitting down occupations doing that. But the thing is, I go, I hustle. So what I will do is usually whenever I come to a stop, I'll grab some cashews that I usually put out snacks and stuff next to me on the floor. And if I come to a stop someplace, I'll grab a handful of cashews, or I'll grab something, a meat stick or something like that, and just chow down real quick while I'm doing the tablet. And then I hit the road again. So I don't really stop and eat. But, and so that's kind of cool, because I'm able to maximize my time. When my 14-hour clock is going, I'd rather use those hours at a customer site or driving. All right, so what was I saying? Okay, so I got pre-assigned. Remember, Pods closes their doors at 3, and I got a pre-assignment at 10 a.m. that was 4 stops in New Jersey, and then 2 days later in Orlando. They wanted the pods delivered. So I was like, great. I have 5 hours I have to drive around New Jersey to go to 4 stops, and not one of them was less than 47 miles, mainly on back roads, almost always on back roads. So luckily, it's starting in Cinnamon Sin, so I rushed around the corner, grabbed there, loaded things up, no wasted time. As soon as I strapped up, I hit the road. There's a place about 2 miles away that's safe, and I pulled over, did my load securement check, because that one was about 52 miles. I would have had to do it anyway. I got to my next place, which I think was Lumberton, if memory serves. I can't remember now. And I went ahead and I pulled up there. I had done my ETA just for one of the things, and apparently I had put in the wrong date. I put in that I would be picking up the following day. So as soon as I pulled up there, the guy says, oh, I just got a note that says you weren't coming till tomorrow. I'm like, tomorrow? No, today. But I guess I put in the wrong date. Anyway, I picked up, he was like, oh, well, it's right here. And so he grabbed it from me, put that on there, and he took all the pods, I think, from Cinnamon Sin, and then he loaded me up with 1. I don't remember. No, he took 1. I left with 3 16-footers. He took 1, and he gave me an 8-footer. And then I went to my next place, which was 49 miles away. I forgot where that one was. And I got there. He took that 8-footer and gave me a different 8-footer. And then from there I had to go to Vineyard, and that was 47 miles away. I got there at 2:52 p.m. Again, back roads. At this point, though, he was nice. He was like, yeah, okay, well, great. Yeah, let's load you up. And I had my last 8-footer. So I had 2 16s and 2 8-footers. And he loaded me up, and I was out of there 15 minutes later because he was on the ball, and I was too. 2 straps on an 8-footer, not much. And at that point, I had 3 miles, and I was looking around for my truck stops. Where could I go? 3 hours to drive. And it was going to be back roads. And I said, you know what? If I stop early, I can maximize my driving the following day. So at this point, I said, okay, I'm gonna go to my typical Carneys Point, New Jersey It's one of the places I'll go when I'm up there. There's almost always a parking spot there. And I went ahead and stopped there because it was 33 miles away. By the time I took the back roads and I got there, it was like 2 hours and change left. I probably could have gone on ahead, but what I told myself was it was starting to get late in the day. And here's one of the things you got to be aware of too. If I were to stop in Carney's Point and shut down by the time I do my post trip and stuff by 4, if I get up the next day with a minimal amount of time wasted at 2 a.m. roughly, and I get my pre-trip done and I hit the road, I have a fighting chance of getting past Baltimore and Washington, D.C. before traffic. So I looked at it and said, if I were to go ahead and drive, I could probably get down to Baltimore, if not close to it, maybe on the other side of it, and I'll have to stop at one of those weird, service places. And granted, the food would be better, but I wouldn't be taking a shower. I was like, I always like to take my showers. So I thought about it, and I said, I could maybe go 75, 80 miles, probably, with those 2 hours if I'm lucky and there's not a whole lot of rush hour traffic. Or I could stop, get up early, and accomplish the exact same amount in less time. So I did that. I got up the next morning, and I drove from Carney's Point all the way down to Hardeeville, South Carolina, which was 686 miles. I hit everything in no traffic. There was a couple of areas where it's road construction, and it drops down to 60 miles an hour. But I find that if you go 63 or so, you don't, you still have cars and trucks passing you, but it's not going to get you a speeding ticket, when they're the ones flying past you. And it didn't really slow you down a whole lot. So I could go a little bit on the slow side there. And then pick right back up to 65. The trick is you stop at rest areas. If you stop at a truck stop and you pull off and you have to, that's where you're going to eat up your time. Now, I know what you might be thinking. How in the world did you go 686 miles when if you go 65 miles an hour for 10 hours, that's 650 miles. And then you add 65 miles to that, you're at 715. 715 is the maximum amount of miles you can do in an 11-hour driving day when you're capped at 65 miles an hour. Well, I didn't waste any time. When I got up, I did my pre-trip. I headed straight out. I jumped right on the interstate, and I started heading down south. And there was only the Delaware Memorial Bridge where it slows you down to what 40 or something like that, but it's only like a minute and a half long, so it's not like it's slowing you down a whole lot. And then from there I hit it straight down south, and every place I stop is a rest area.
Appointment time changed for stop at Greensboro, NC. Appointment time changed for stop at Greensboro, NC.
It has to say it twice for some strange reason, and it gives me the messages twice. Okay, so I got and the thing is, though, you stop at rest areas. That way you just pull right off, you pull into a parking space, you do your load securement check, and you pull right back on the interstate. No wasted time. And if you're not wasting time having to get to a traffic light and turn left, turn right, get in there, wait for a truck to pull out or any of that kind of stuff. You just pull right off, and then you pull right back on. And you sit there until it's free and clear. That way when you pull out, you can push down the gas and you just start taking right off and get up to speed, and you're not wasting time. And that's the way you do it. What I will usually try to do is while I'm still stopped, I always do my electronic logs, which is a load securement check, TIV, tire check, and trip planning paperwork. When I'm sitting here after I do my load securement check and stuff, what I will do is I will go back to dispatch, and I'll say, where is my, go along the road. And then I will do a search for rest areas along the road also. And I will pick the one that's closest to 150 miles, but less than, as far as I can get. If it ends up being that there's not a rest area after like 75 miles or something like that, by this area I know I-75 or I-95 pretty well. So at this point I know that there's areas that you can pull off on. There's a lot of way stations that you can pull off into their area too. So at that point, I know that there's some way stations, so I'll go ahead and pull off there. And because they have, parking that you can stop at sometimes. So you just pull straight off, pull into the thing, and then pull right back on the interstate, the same kind of thing. Okay, got down there. Hardyville. Here's where I got a bit annoyed. Because I got my pre-assignment, dropping off in Orlando, and then picking up again in the same place in Orlando, and then go to another place in Orlando. And then I have to drop off in Greensboro, North Carolina, and Richmond, Virginia. And it gave me 2 days to do it. So I pick up one day and drive, and then the next day they have them due. The reason this annoys me is because I've already been making great time. If they had not sent me all throughout New Jersey, and it took me 5 hours literally to go those 4 stops in New Jersey, bouncing around on all these back roads, if I didn't do that, I could have gotten down farther, where even though I did like 686 miles in that one day, and I still did it within my hours of service. Now granted, I know that by the time I get down close like that, there's a truck stop about every 10 miles or so. So I know that as I start to get close, I when I do my last load securement check, I turn on Waze. And I have my Waze sitting down there where I don't have to touch it. But what I do is I glance down at the time that it has me arriving, because anyone that has Waze knows it gives you a time of estimated time of arrival. Now I know that I'm not going to be driving those kinds of speeds, so I will usually deduct a couple minutes, but I start to glance down every few minutes, and I can get an idea of if the time starts to go up a little bit every few minutes, that's fine. I expect that. But if it starts to go up exponentially, I know there's a stop, and that's when there's some sort of traffic or something like that, and that's when I'm going to go ahead and take my stop. So there's a little tidbit of knowledge for you too. You don't have to touch anything. You don't have to do anything on your phone. Do it at a load securement check area. That way you do it on your phone, then you put it down, and then you can just glance at it. And you can use Waze just for the traffic monitoring. Or if you have another GPS program that does it, that's fine too. Now I got annoyed though, because I drove from Hardyville, South Carolina, 300 miles. I did my delivery in Orlando, picked up 2 pods, drove to another place in Orlando, picked up 1 more. I had to double check myself. Yes, I have three 16-footers on, and then I drove as far north as I could, and I shut down. I have, what is it, like half an hour left on my clock, because in this area, if I were to drive up a little bit farther north at this time of day, it could start to, especially since it's been raining a little bit, it could have started to get a little trafficy. So I decided to not do that. I'm going to go ahead and shut down and start early. They want me to deliver to Greensboro, North Carolina, and then Richmond tomorrow. Greensboro, North Carolina, up 95, and then you take back roads to get there. In a car, you can do it in 5 hours according to Waze. In a truck, it'll take closer to 6 hours. They don't start loading you up until about 7 o'clock there. I called them, and they said 7 to 8 is when they start doing their loading up. Okay, so I'm dropping a 16-footer and I'm picking up a 16-footer there tomorrow morning. And then I have about a 3.5 to 4 hour drive to Richmond, another 200 miles. Now, I'm a bit frustrated by that, because I'm already going to be driving 300 miles in back roads. I'll be arriving probably 6:30 to 7, probably close to 7, truth be known. Because I'm planning on it taking me about 5.5 hours. So if it's going to take me about 5.5 hours, I'm expecting to get there about 7:30. Is that really leaving at 2? I don't want to leave at 2. No. I'm going to arrive at 7. I'll arrive at 7. He said 7 to 8. If I get there, I can unstrap and I can get my paperwork ready and stuff like that. So if I arrive early, that's what I'll do. If I arrive a little bit later, still within that window, that's fine. I adjust my ATAs. I'm good. So that way I'll leave still around 1 a.m. 6:30. 1:30. I'll leave around 1:30. I don't know. I have to think about it. If it takes me 5.5 hours to get there, roughly, and I need to be there at 1:30. Okay, so that's what I'll do. Then from there, potential traffic going over to Richmond. So if I'm driving 6 hours, and then I have another 3-hour drive to Richmond, I put in my ETAs, and then I corrected it and said I'm going to try to get to Richmond. And one of the DTLs sent me a message that says, it's due tomorrow. Why aren't you going to be able to make it there? Why aren't you going to be able to do the delivery? And I'm like, you know, it's not like I'm wasting time here. I'm hustling. I'm driving it in the middle of the night when traffic is clear. I mean, I've gotten up sometimes at like 10:30, 11 p.m. and I've driven overnight, completely overnight, and then gotten to where I'm going because I know that I time things. I look at the cities I'm going to be getting to. I estimate when I'm going to be arriving there. If there's a city that I think that I'm going to be hitting about the time rush hour happens, I'll back up my commute a little bit and leave an extra half an hour to an hour early so that way I can miss that city. And that way that I'm driving in rush hour traffic between two big, rush hour time between two big cities. But it really annoyed me that I have 6 hours basically of back roads, 5 to 6 hours, 5.5 to 6 hours. And that's if all goes well. On back roads, hopefully they're like 60, I could go 65 miles an hour. These little back roads, they usually have traffic lights, and I've looked at the roads and some of them do have traffic lights, and they'll probably drop you down to 45 for no reason, and just it's going to drive me crazy. And if it takes me longer than 6 hours to get there and it takes me longer than 4 hours to get to Richmond, man, that's not going to be fun, because I'm going to end up having to shut down. They say that if you can park outside the gate at that location. I don't want to. I would rather stop at a truck stop. But if that is where I have to stop to make that delivery and hopefully get a pre-assignment, I will do it. I'm not happy about it, but I'll do it. So that's the latest. One thing I did want to mention here is my thoughts on taking on your 30-minute breaks. If you can time your 30-minute break during a fuel stop, you can it's going to be great, because if you get in a line to get your fuel, it might be 5 or 10 minutes by the time you get up there. By the time you fuel up, it might be 10 to 15 minutes. Then you pull up and you double check your address and stuff like that. There's your 30 minutes. You never have to go into the sleeper berth. You never have to go off the clock. And that's your 30 minutes of doing something that's not driving. And I like spending my time double checking things, looking at my traffic, because even if the thing tells me the way it's going to go, it doesn't estimate traffic. It just tells me the route. You have your 11-hour day, and you have to drive at least 3 hours before it will give you the last 3 left, because you can drive full 8 hours, then you have to stop for 30 minutes and do something that's not driving to get the last 3 hours. So after you drive 3 hours, that's when you're going to take your half-hour break, whatever you happen to be doing. If you don't end up fueling up, you can jump off the clock and go inside and get something. I don't. I just power on ahead. I make my stop, so I will drive before I get to the stop. And if I stop and do my unload and load and stuff like that, it will take me, in better places when there's only 1 or 2 pods, if they're organized, it might take 15 minutes. And if that's the case, then what I'll do is I'll go ahead and double check my paperwork. I'll go ahead and see if there's any videos or anything like that that they've sent out that they want us to watch, something like that. That way I'm using my 30 minutes efficiently, and that way I'm able to unlock it. If I'm only like an hour and a half or something like that, I'm going to go ahead and hit the road. If I'm less than 3 hours, I'm not going to waste the time. I'm just going to go ahead and hit the road. I'll stop later at a rest area or something for 30 minutes. But I always try to take my take a rest area when I'm driving, because it's right off the road and right back on. There's usually restrooms. There's usually places to refill a water bottle. And when it comes down to taking your 30, double check your paperwork. Make sure you get your paperwork in order with who's got to sign what and when and that kind of thing. Double check your, traffic. Check the weather. Check also if you happen to be going through an area that is windy, you can get the Windy app and you can see if there's wind advisories in your area. There's different things that you can do administratively to use your time efficiently that's going to help you when you're on the road. You can also look ahead at traffic. If there's a traffic jam, or better yet, when there's road construction and they say, there's some programs that will tell you they're going to be stopping the road, and they're estimated that it's going to be done at like 9:30 a.m. or they have road construction until 6 a.m. or something like that. If you know that that's ahead, just sit there and hang tight a little bit longer, because there's no point in using your drive hours when you drive down the road and then sit in traffic, when you can leave 20 or so minutes later and you might slow down a little bit because traffic is speeding up. But if these are cars that were stopped, they're going to be stomping on the gas to try to get themselves moving again. So they're going to be doing that when they do this, when they get going again. So that's going to be good for you, provided they don't hit the gas right into you. So I'm about to go take a shower now. Then I'm probably going to call it a night. Well, I'll probably eat something, then, grab a little something, put it in the air fryer, and then go shower, and then call it a night. Because I got to spend my time driving on those back roads tomorrow morning. I tried looking at the interstates, but at 65 miles an hour, the interstates will take you this way, and then this way, and then this way, or this way, and then this way, as opposed to back roads that will take you straight through. So if I take the interstates, it says at 70 miles an hour, it will take you, which is, highway speeds. It estimates it will take you 5 hours and 46 minutes. And that's with Waze, and that's in a car. So if that's what it's guessing, I'm hoping that means that those are some highway speeds. Those are like speed limit 65 roads. But then it's not routing me the same way that the tablet is. On the note of the tablet, it really annoyed me yesterday because I always leave my tablet plugged in. For whatever reason, it decided not to charge. As I was driving, it suddenly died like 2 hours into my drive. I look over and I see, and it, because I saw the screen go off, and I'm like, what's going on? And it shows the charging icon. I'm like, you see that you're connected because the charger's there. So I let it sit there for a moment. Here I am driving down the road, and because I've been on the road for 2 hours, I know I have a load securement check coming up. So I kind of glance at it, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to let it get up to like, I knew by that point from glancing at it where my rest area was going to be. It was coming up in about 8 miles. So I said, I'm going to let it charge for maybe about 5 minutes, and then I'm going to turn it back on. Just press and hold the button, it comes back on. And take my rest area, and then I pull off on the rest area, and I'm sitting there waiting for the thing to come up, so that way I can change out of my drive time and change it over to my on-duty, load securement check and all that kind of stuff. Really annoying though, because it just did not want to go. But eventually it came online and it creeped its way to success, and it did it. And then I was able to hit the road, but I did nothing different. Except at that point, I took the brightness all the way down. I was driving in the middle of the night, so I took the brightness all the way down, and then it was able to charge. Didn't touch the cable. So I was charging, just lower the brightness all the way, and it had enough, it was able to charge. And so I give it a couple moments. I see it go up 1%, so I take the brightness up a little bit more. After I see it go up another percent, I'm like, okay, I'm going to go back to full brightness. I go up to full brightness, sure as the world, it's fine. So it makes me wonder if there's a lot of crap running on that tablet that is causing it to use extra battery. It's the only thing I could think of because it was plugged in and it was charging. So what I'm going to have to do is check it in the morning after you start up the truck when you're doing your pre-trip and your in cab. When you're doing your pump down tests and stuff like that, and you're doing your building back up your pressure and stuff like that, your tablet's charging at that point. At that point, I'm going to start glancing it. I'm going to go ahead, since I'm sitting here waiting for the thing to refill its air tanks, I might as well clear it out and restart the tablet. So I'm going to clear out the memory of all the apps and then restart the tablet, probably clear them again, and then do things, because it takes a little while to recharge these air tanks. So there you go. That's what is going on. That's what I'm going to be doing next couple of days. Yeah. So we're good. I'm just not happy about taking back roads for... I'm going to be taking the Interstate 95 for about 100 miles. Just under. And then I start taking back roads. That's annoying. Because if I could just stay on the interstate, I would be so much happier with my drive time, and I'd be able to estimate when I would going to be arriving quick enough. So anyway, that's that. It's been 8 days since the last video. Sorry, I normally release one in every 7 days or something like that, but I've been go. Even when I did my shutdown, my laptop is old, and trying to get these videos where they will render out from this camera, it crashes so many times. So I spend all day just sitting there fighting the computer, shutting down processes, then try to render it again, and then it error, and then I have to catch up on whatever else. Anyway, it's annoying. I don't need to share. You don't need to know how the sausage is made. But there you go. That's what the update is for right now. I'll try to make sure that I do another update in the next few days. I didn't realize it had been 8 days though. I thought I did another one recently. Guess not though. I failed. Sorry.